It's true that there are a lot of people using the XRP platform and its capabilities to construct things that have nothing to do with ripples. Thus, XRP will endure. Will it be valuable though? The XRP ecosystem would suffer if the lawsuit forces Ripple to vanish, either by dissolving the company or by forbidding them from selling XRP. Payments across borders is the primary application for XRP. Ripple is the only business that can bring banks and XRP technology together. Without them, XRP will continue to trade at a discount for a very long time. But the SEC's case against Ripple is unexpectedly thin. And by that, I mean that I find it surprising that they are so unprepared and that they proceeded with such an amazing and historic case. Especially after spending 8 years observing Ripple in action and having had plenty time to prepare. Unless you count bringing the case at all, the SEC's activity is not careless. Instead of collaborating with Ripple to comprehend the technology, steer the business, and yes, safeguard investors, it really comes down to the SEC enforcing regulations. Rather, the abrupt yet incredibly delayed lawsuit cost ordinary investors real billions. Currently, the only significant issue facing Ripple the company is that they neglected to recognize that their sales ought to have been recorded as securities sales. It's not as though they ought to have listed XRP as a security, reiterating that SEC is not classifying XRP as a security or alleging that customers or exchanges are breaking the law by purchasing or selling it. Despite the SEC's forced admission that it hasn't designated XRP as security, they maintain that Ripple and its CEOs should have understood that sales they made would be seen as security sales. Can you see the confusion here? How could Ripple know something about which even the SEC is unsure? I have a sizable holding of XRP. I only thought about selling in this particular situation, and after giving it some serious thought, I'm still in. I believe that Ripple endures and that XRP greatly expands as a result. From Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple, even if the United States stays in a state of perpetual cold, as Shayla Warren reportedly said on stage, this past cryptocurrency winter has seen a return to the construction of basic infrastructure and utilities. Let's take a look at this from the perspective of an XRP billionaire. There is no other explanation for Judge Torres' deliberate withholding of the summary judgment than her involvement in the corrupt system, which is why I am confident she is owned by the SEC. Beyond a jest, attorney John Deaton provided an explanation for the judge's protracted decision-making process on the approval of Bitcoin ETFs. I can't change your opinions, but I will tell you the amount of research that needs to be done. Lewis calling the guy that I was talking to is someone you should all follow. Let's talk about this idea that anything nefarious is happening. Okay, that's total nonsense in my opinion. The New York crypto lawyer is a great guy who is very bright and knows this case law better than anyone in the industry. He also has a research article that we were talking about today, which I made into Exhibit B in the Naomi Brockwell amicus brief I wrote and filed. Lewis joked with me, telling me to read his article and go through all those cases that are in play right now, 180 cases total, and he didn't even get into the Ripple argument in his brief of the pre-1934 investment contract that the judge must grapple with. This means that you're talking about reviewing state law cases from the 1920s and 1904 and looking at congressional intent. Just to let you know, the quantity of material that this one judge must review is huge, and she fully decides in favor of the SEC as soon as she renders her decision, which is immediately appealable. As I stated at the outset, Ripple is prepared. Her summary judgment brief is intended for appellate courts, so she is aware that if she finds in favor of the SEC, Ripple will file an appeal. The SEC will probably file a notice of appeal. Alternatively, they might try to negotiate with Ripple instead of filing an appeal. But let's face it, this case will go to the U.S. Supreme Court, and it looks like she has a ton of material to review because it's a significant matter for the cryptocurrency industry and she wants to get it right. Deaton went on to say that Judge Torres has an enormous quantity of material to review and that she is aware of this if she decides cases for the SEC. Ripple will undoubtedly file an appeal and win this. If Ripple files an appeal and the situation worsens, the case may even reach the Supreme Court without a judge. Torres is not employed by the SEC and other financial products. However, as we begin to understand more complex structures, such as swaps, the U.S. stops its banks from engaging in these activities by using regulatory capital. They say, no, this is inefficient, you can't do this. The UK and Europe responded favorably, saying, "We're going to regulate and allow it to happen because it's big. We've seen this before. That becomes a quadrillion-dollar market." Jesus, that's the reason why every single bank operated between around 1990 and 2008, or from approximately 1985 to be more precise, especially after the Big Bang in London. 2010 saw the largest operations of all the major banks in London, making Goldman Sachs the most profitable in the city. Merrill Lynch London, which is distinct from JP Morgan because it was a brokerage firm, will engage in a practice known as regulatory arbitrage. If you've been following the news, you'll see that London does this regularly. A highly sensible set of crypto regulations is being assembled by London, Europe, Switzerland, Singapore, Hong Kong, Australia, and other countries. Well, there's the former trading group that handled foreign currency, derivatives, and euros/dollars. All of these activities were governed by legislation, and the UK served as the hub, capturing the lion's share before Coinbase was even a thing. Gemini and all of them will relocate to London from hbar XRP. Currently, the financial system is undergoing three significant changes. The first is ISO 20022 Global Payments, which deals with cross-border payments and remittances. The Basel III and IV regulations. Reserves of gold back now that gold has become a Tier 1 asset at the end of the labor transition to the poor end of a multi-decade control over debt interest rates. Do you really believe that this will not have a significant global impact? How many establishments won't be able to pass? I'm excited for cryptocurrency to replace coin shares as the primary form of technology in the near future. CSO companies that oversee $27 trillion in assets are getting into cryptocurrency. The combined assets under management of the top 8 financial institutions interested in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are a staggering $27 trillion. Examine the BlackRock Spot Bitcoin ETF filing from last week. It wasn't the only noteworthy development. A simple look reveals that several of the biggest U.S. financial institutions are actively attempting to make Bitcoin and more accessible. $27 trillion worth of client assets are represented here. This is by no means an exhaustive list of all the offerings available, but it's always beneficial to zoom out and take a closer look at the bigger picture. As institutions come online, it's more of a trickle than a wave, and we can see the bridges being built in real time. It's also useful to examine whether companies are opting to build, buy, or partner. Thus far, we've seen a lot of partner firms, but some are choosing to build, something we haven't seen many of them by established crypto firms, costly acquisition targets with billion-dollar-plus valuations. Some of these targets could have been simpler to purchase in a downturn, but the crypto markets and trading volumes have proven remarkably resilient, and venture and growth equity investors have been willing to pay high sums, probably because they expected to exit through an IPO first. That being said, statements like this do not constitute any kind of promise from the Ripple. It is quite probable that this indicates that they will continue to concentrate on the sole feature of being the best option for activities that include international transactions. Please keep in mind that I am a novice investor with no prior legal experience at all. I hope this was useful.